As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission, I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain, keep on working, open curtains. Haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. I'm never gonna give up, fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah. Cause this is war. Let's camera action.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHHLP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio.
Hello, how are you this morning, New Haven, New York, wherever we're reaching out at? Good morning, happy Friday. I think that song is just perfect song for both of my guests today. Never gonna give up, fall down, we getting up. And that's what we do. We're getting up. So I want to invite you to have a conversation with us around many things around incarceration and reentry and all the things that we face, we people face. Because when I say we, because when we have someone incarcerated, many times we're doing time right along with them. So I want to introduce Miss Marisol Garcia and Mr. Ray Boyd. Both people now have Yale affiliations. And so I want you to, just tell the community a little bit about who you are, what you're doing, and your association with Yale. And we're going to do ladies first.
I was actually going to say Ray. So I actually have multiple affiliations with Yale. I actually first was affiliated as an undergrad at Trinity. I had reached out to the Yale Safe Center for Health and Justice as an intern, and I was one of their research and public policy interns. Then I ended up doing the Yale Law Access Program at Yale that helped prepare me. It's a program that's helped prepare people from marginalized communities, formerly incarcerated, BIPOC communities, to have a pathway into law school, how to prepare, how to take the LSATs, how to coach, how to prepare all your documents. And I'm actually a 1L at Vermont Law School this year, actually finishing up my first year. And my biggest affiliation is actually through the Yale Prison Education Initiative as a college to career fellow that has enabled me. I'm actually finishing up my fellowship in June. It allowed me to have access to all the resources at Yale, from the Lyman Center, the Justice Collaboratory, the Safe Center. I can take classes, whether through credit when I was doing my master's program, but it allows me to interact with people from throughout Yale, but even throughout a wider network, through alumni, other professors at other universities, internationally and nationally, in any issue. I specifically am more mass incarceration, public health, and public policy. But, we have different fellows that are artists and other people that, whether it's artistry, seminary, it runs the gambit. So I think it allowed me the ability to get in and test the waters.
All right.
And figure out exactly that I'm exactly on the right track with policy.
Okay. And you're on the steering committee of?
Stop Solitary Connecticut.
Okay, don't forget that part.
Nope.
Okay, thank you, Marisol. I want to bring on Ray Boyd, another upcoming Yale affiliate, and tell us about what you're doing these days, Ray, because I hear you a lot of stuff in the news.
Over at Yale, I am the program manager for New Visions for Public Safety. We're doing a Natives for Justice program where we bring in reading material and books to county jail facilities. And we're also doing the Books to Prison project that I oversee, where we bring every month, we bring at least 10 to 15 cases of books to a correctional facility here in the state of Connecticut. And we're also covering the Danbury Federal Prison in Connecticut. So reading was one of my keys to my success currently. When I went to prison, I was a seventh grade dropout, reading on a third or fourth grade level. I found that reading what I was hearing when I was younger that reading was fundamental actually became true while I was incarcerated, and we know the importance of the literacy rate and that our young men have and women have while they're serving their time. So we just try to encourage them to become educated so that they can become better citizens when they come back into the community. We also do some symposiums that we've done on campus. We've done the Visitor Room Project. Last night, we just co-sponsored Black Trivia Night here in Yale, so it's just a whole lot of things that we do. And on another front, with Next Level, the things that we're doing here in New Haven is innovative, hasn't been done yet with the Warm Line, where individuals can call whether they're incarcerated or if they're family or loved ones of those that are incarcerated, to try to understand the carceral system and what their friends or loved ones may be going through at any period of their incarceration from the day of their arrest to post-conviction. So yeah, that's what I do.
Okay, there's more you're doing, but I want to get back to the reading, bringing books in. I know there was a time you couldn't bring books in; they had to go through the bookstore. So you're allowed to bring books in?
Yes, we donate directly to the libraries and the system. So yeah, some days I may drop off like legal books. I tend to drop them off at the headquarters in Weathersfield because there's only so many facilities that now constitute as having a law library. So we try to make sure that those books get into the hands of the men and women at York, as well as McDougal and Osborne Correctional Facility.
Oh, okay. So if I wanted to donate to that project, as an individual and as Stop Solitary, how do we go about doing that? Donating books
So
or
if one wants to,
contributing?
if you wanted to donate, we're always taking donations.
And where would those be sent to? Oh, he froze. You froze, Ray, so we missed you. Ray, you might have to go in and come back, go out and come back in because we can't hear you. I hope he can hear me saying that. But anyway, so we'll go on and wait till he can get back in because I wanted him to talk about the transition house that they have that's coming up.
He's there.
Oh, so you're back, Ray? Okay, because you frozen, so we didn't hear how to contribute.
Okay.
You're breaking up.
BOY. 1 second.
Okay. Because I think that's great now that we can bring books in because I know it's very much needed. And then everybody's not going to take the time to go to, to this bookstore and purchase and send it through Weathersfield, whatever you had to do in the past. So it's good that there's an outlet now that we can contribute to the sending books into people because reading is very fundamental. So when he comes back in, I want to have him talk about his transition house that's going to be opening soon. So let's talk about, and that goes right into a public hearing we had recently around public housing, about housing period, as it relates to people coming out of prison and the background checks that people do to keep people out of housing. That was huge. I, actually testified on that. And so I wish we had more people because there's thousands of us out there having problem with housing, and then to have them use background checks for housing is even worse. Can you just talk about your situation with housing when you came home? Was it a problem?
For me, actually, it was. So the fact that, first of all, I came out to Hartford where I knew nobody. So I came out to an area that was not something, no area I knew. And I tried, first of all, parole made it very difficult because this was at the right at the onset of the pandemic. So this is when they were trying to shuffle out a lot of people, and they were holding out the care of like, if you can find housing, or if you're able to, be able to take care of yourself, you should be able to go out in the community. So first of all, parole would not let me go out on my own. They required I had a sponsor. So at the time, again, I didn't know anybody in Hartford. And I started seeing someone through the job I had. And it ended up being one of these things that they required that he become my sponsor. Now, he was living in public housing at the time. And we went through like a 4-month period where public housing was like, you guys need to be married. You need to be on the lease. There's no girlfriend. There's none of this. So I was put in a position where I couldn't go out on my own because the parole people said to me I could not. I couldn't self-sponsor. Then I was put in a position where I was putting my future in the life of someone I barely knew. I had only been home for like not even 6 to 9 months. And that's, as we already know, that's not long enough to be able to know someone, not let alone live with somebody, especially coming from being, down for minimum 5 years, let alone anybody who's down longer. And I ended up stepping out, where I could have went back to prison by marrying this man in secret. And even then housing denied me anyway because of my background. So not only did I put myself at risk, and I tied myself to somebody that it took me 3.5 years to untie myself from. Poor decisions, but it was because I was placed in a situation that pushed me to make decisions or choices before I was ready. Right. Because if not, where else was I going to live?
Right.
Then it was, I had to go to a resettlement program that was very heavily not in the best of neighborhoods. And then it ended up being where I couldn't find a place to live because, again, nobody would give me an opportunity. Even though I had a job, I was in school, my credit score was above 700, and I had more than enough money to, I was working 2 jobs. I had more than enough money to be able to put first, last, and an additional month. Still no go. It was your criminal background, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't have any other choice. So I stayed with this individual, and I had no choice but to buy a place of my own. I didn't even have a chance to rent or any of the sort, because if I didn't buy, I wouldn't have anywhere to live. I would have sat at at a facility, for another year. And then what if they kicked me out because it was only a certain amount of time?
Right.
I had no option,
So
at
you
that
ended
point.
up buying, purchasing?
Yeah.
Okay.
And not everybody has that ability
Right.
to do that. But I was also working 3 jobs. I killed myself for almost 2 years. Yeah. But again, I was living with somebody who, it puts you in domestic violence situations, like, I don't think people recognize that the choices that people get put into these circumstances,
right? You
can get hurt, you can go back to prison.
Yeah,
it doesn't
all
make
that
it
to have a place to stay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to bring Ray back in.
Mhm.
Hopefully this time it won't break up. So we were just talking about the housing when you come out of incarceration, how problematic that is. But I also want to go back, before you talk about that, I want to go back to how can we contribute to this venture of getting books into prison?
If you want to contribute, you can either reach me by cell phone or email, and we can arrange a pickup date. If you need boxes to box up your books, I'll drop the boxes off to you to package the books, and I can pick them up at a later date. But folks can reach me at my email at Yale. It's Ray, RAY .Boyd, BOYD at Yale.edu. And also my cell phone number is 203-668-7928. So you can reach me
repeat that? Can you repeat that just to make sure people get it?
Yes. My email is ray.boyd at yale.edu. That's RAY.BOYD at yale.edu. And my cell phone number is 203-668-7928.
Thank you so much, Ray.
So
all of you people that out here listening, you hear this is something that you can do to help incarcerated people and get books to them. And those books, do they have to be brand new out of the store, or can
No,
they
they
be?
don't. They don't have to be brand new. We just ask that they be in usable condition, and it's
Excellent.
important for the community at large to know that you know, in our Neighbors for Justice, the folks that are in these county jails are actually our neighbors. So it's important
Mhm.
that we invest in the product that we would like to see coming out of these prisons. You know what I'm saying? We want folks to come out better than they were when in there. So it's important that we keep in mind that these are our neighbors, these are our family members, and some of our close friends that are being housed in these situations. So why not contribute if you have something there and invest in your company? We're not asking for a monetary investment.
Mhm.
A books is a small thing, a small donation that we can do, and we can begin to, invoke change in our community by just, donating something small as a book.
Thank you so much, Ray. As you're talking, I'm thinking, there's so many things people say, I want to help, I want to help. What can I do? What can I do?
Yeah,
And this is something you can do. You don't
yeah.
have to show up. So there's no excuse
Mhm.
about, oh, I don't have transportation, because you're going to pick the books up
I'll,
for them.
I'll pick the books up.
So,
I'll pick the
yeah,
books
you're
up.
not asking for
You know,
money, just you got books,
yeah,
he'll come by and pick them up for
and
you.
pick them
So
up.
there's no
Yeah,
excuse. That's something you can do.
yeah,
Okay, now I want to get back to the housing. We just heard from Marisol, her experience. It's unbelievable what people have to go through just to have a house because
yes.
you've been incarcerated. So talk about the opportunities your organization or yourself is coming up with for people coming out of prison.
Well, we just signed a 10-year lease on a two-family home. And, we've been partnering with the city. The city has been graceful enough to give us a grant to refurbish this house. We'll have 7 bedrooms. Of course, we have a contract with the DOC. We'll be working, doing program in Manson Youth. And, I'm a co-founder of the True Reentry Program. So of course, I want to dedicate some of those rooms to those spaces so that these young men can have a successful transition back into the community. Also, the remaining beds will be for adults transitioning back in the community. Some of our senior mentors and just guys that are doing good in the system that we
Mhm.
can use and put in these places to again assist the young men as they're transitioning back into the community and uh, utilize that holistic approach where being our brother's keeper as opposed to having someone from the DOC on site every day, being threatening, telling you that you have to have a job or you're going to get locked up. I mean, of course, we
Mhm.
want these young men to work, but we don't want to put the pressure, too much pressures on them that may cause them to digress or recidivate.
Right. Because for me, I used to sit at reentry tables. I just stopped because, I hear people talking about, focus on jobs and housing. And as a clinical social worker, I was more focused on, I think they need to debrief from the experience. It's very
Mhm.
traumatic being
Yes.
incarcerated.
Hmm.
You get institutionalized.
Yes.
There's a lot of stress put on these people. A lot of mental illness comes out of there. So how about we make number one thing that we focus on is how do we help these people become human beings again? And nobody was having that conversation. So I just got tired of going to the reentry tables. But I think that's one of the most important things people need to know. People are
And
forever changed when they sit inside of those cages, and we need
yeah,
to make sure they get their life back.
and that's one of the key reasons why Next Level and want to open a halfway house. We chose to open up a transition sober house because we want to give an individual that home experience
Mhm.
that they may have not gotten in a home of dysfunction or you know where they were staying at prior to their incarceration. So the individuals that are moving and that will be moving into the house when we do our ribbon cutting um, will be coming into a space of their own. They will not be sharing a bunk bed with someone in
Oh,
the room. This will be
nice.
their own, home feel to their transition and their reentry coming out. So they won't have to, you won't have to worry about being responsible for no one else's stuff in your room because it will be your room for the duration that you are there. And also, if I may add that a mentor of mine, former counselor Moore from the Cheshire Correctional Facility who passed away just recently in an auto accident. We have the blessings of his wife, and his fraternity will be naming the transition house after him because he always stood for second chances for violent offenders such as myself. And I think it's a great way to honor him and you know, keep moving forward the idea and the vision that we have for Next Level.
This is exciting. And as Marisol talked about, we need to look at how we can accommodate women, because I know there's a lot more spaces for men, but I mean, it makes sense. There's a whole lot more men in prison, but we still want to make sure that we have something to accommodate women, and I would see a vision of something like that for children that are coming back home. Because sometimes our kids are that parents probably don't even know what's happening to their kids behind bars. They have probably have no idea what they're doing to our kids. And those kids are going to come out pretty messed up too.
Yeah.
And so they're going to need somebody who can understand what they've been through and how they have to get back their humanity and be social, be around other people. And we need something for children. And then on top of that, the higher vision is, especially when it comes to housing, is think about opening up another place for people who haven't been incarcerated, or maybe have been incarcerated a long time ago, but that people still hold that against them. A 20-year-old criminal record can keep you from getting a house today. So we have so much issues around housing.
So if I can address that real quick, so Next Level, one thing about Next Level, it's an all-inclusive club. It's not a man's club. It's not a girls' club. It's a men and women's club. We service men and women, and I think that's what separates us from most reentry programs. A lot of them, when they start, they either start for men or for women, and we're trying to bring the service to both men and women because we know the importance of it. I think a lot of what women have to experience upon reentry is compounded because they don't have the support that most men have. Like I was fortunate to have my wife and my family to help me get through, and some friends. But I think when women come home, it's just them on their own to do what they have to do. And I think that more support needs to be there. That's why we chose to make it all inclusive. And we are looking to be able to support these women coming home by, opening up that house, and we will eventually get there. And we are, I don't want to mention it right now. We are looking for, we have located space for those that have, been out and know what it's like to suffer and go through the transition of coming home, and with all of these barriers put in place. And we look to have that space very soon. I'm an optimistic person. Optimism came from, some of the first meetings we had about Next Level, and look where we are now. I'm just happy that we're where we're at, and I'm able to, give back to my community.
Okay, Marisol, did you want to say something before we move on?
Yeah, Ray points out, as do you guys talk about this, like that in-between place. And, it hits that, like, not a lot of people have that support. And especially, Ray did a significant amount of time, but he's not the only one. There's been so many people, because of the criminal justice reform, people are coming home. And that shock of coming home, but not, coming home, whether it's to family or to a program or to, or to a halfway house or getting out, there's that weird, awkward space in between, because as you say, that a space where people don't have to share a room, people don't have to share a space, people being prepared to come home, but being able to, as you said, debrief from being in a cage.
Right.
Like, this is where my shout out or my challenge to DOC is, with all that space, with, instead of using it in a punitive fashion, like, these, like Northern was, and like how they used, half of York, it's the east side of York is open, but they've let it fall into disrepair with these rat infested buildings or mice infested buildings, rather than utilizing them to help people who've done long-term time settle into an idea that, okay, I'm going home soon. These are, this is not how life is all the time, and kind of de-stress and stopping that hypervigilant state that they don't even prepare them for. Nobody wants to talk about it. You know, like Ray's one of the few, maybe a handful of people that I know who's jumped into this work, you know, feet in, did what he's done. But not a lot of people are willing to do that. A lot of people, once they leave, they're like, dude, I never want to talk about this. I never want to deal with this again. How do you help people like that? How do you help them debrief from that when DOC makes them, you know, they're murderers, they're criminals, they're this, they're that, they're inhuman, but yet they then get dropped into society where, guess what? They're the exact same thing. They're just not in cage anymore. But how do they acclimate to that? DOC doesn't help them. Society rejects them. And sometimes they don't want anything to do with, there's nothing to prepare them for that. Right. Where's that in-between place? And I mean, before they get out to a program like Ray's or something like that, or even a halfway house, how do we help them that way? DOC is not creating any pathways to doing that. I challenge Kiros and the governor to do that. Why are they not doing that?
It's just like at York, and then I think Chester had it too, the Worth program, and they really could just expand those, because I volunteered in Worth, and the environment I was in was nothing like what I hear. It was not cages. People were all out. We brought different programs in. I mean, they had dogs in there that they take care of. I seen people with musical instruments. It was a whole different environment. So if DOC wanted to help people, they could, because you can move them out of them cages. They don't have to be in those cages. And that's one of the things I challenge the state of Connecticut, period, is how did we ever get to a place where we thought it was okay to put people in cages? And usually when I ask that question, I never get an answer. How did that happen? And so we have to start there, that we thought it was okay to put people in cages, and not even talking about the way we're treating them once we put them there. But that's a whole different story. I got a lot of stuff I wanted to do today in this hour, so I can't stay too far on that. But there are so many barriers to people getting their life back after they've been incarcerated. And it depends on who you are, because that's another thing I talked about in my testimony for housing. I testified about a person who has a job, who's been criminal past goes back 20 years, and the credit's good, and that's the barrier. Well, you have a record. Yeah, but it's 20 years ago. So, you know, people, when I testify, and this is how I feel like, remember the history with African Americans, where the landlord will put a sign on outside the apartment, Negroes do not apply, need not apply. All we've done now, we've took that sign now because it's no longer legal, and we've used credit and background checks to do the same thing, to keep people from being able to get their life back. But we hide behind it's a background check or the credit's not good. But we do that because we know many people in our communities that are over policed and the laws are selectively enforced, those people are more likely to have a criminal record. And those are going to be the marginalized Black and brown people. So we already know if we over police those communities, these are the people with the background checks. If they've been incarcerated, they probably don't have good credit. Let's use those two as excuses now, instead of saying we don't want to rent to Black people or Hispanic people. Just say we can't rent to people who have a criminal background. So we have a lot of work that has to be done, and we have to do it in Hartford. So moving on. One of the things I wanted to put out there for the public, because I just became aware of it, is the bail reform. Now, bail reform is something that we've been working on. Well, at least I've been out there working on forever and ever and ever. Now, I just found out recently, say someone's bond is $5,000. People think you either have to get a bondsman or pay, and which you're not going to get your money back, or you have to pay the $5,000. I recently found out, no, the state, you can bring the money to the jail or to the courthouse, 7% of the bail. And when that person's case is over, you get your money back. I didn't know that. So I'm putting it out there for people who don't realize that. They think they have to go to a bondsman and they're not getting their money back. You don't have to do that anymore. 7%, take it to the jail, take it to the courthouse, and that money gets put away until that person's case is over. Once the case is over, you get your money back. So that's another thing. I try to put stuff out there that people may not know about. Okay, let's quickly talk about Ray. Talk about the lawsuit that's going on in Osborne, and then Marisol, you can talk about the lawsuit that's going on or disability against the women in York and the sexual assault. So Ray, can we have you talk about the Osborne lawsuit?
Yeah, so there's been, issues with the Osborne Correctional Facility for years. There's been, a Facebook page as the Close Osborne and so on and so forth. But Mr. Tolliver is a case right now, civil 1983 case, Tolliver versus Semple, where Mr. Tolliver is suing the Connecticut Department of Corrections for the conditions going on over there for Eighth Amendment violations, cruel and unusual punishment, and for individuals who have family members who were housed at Osborne Correctional Institute between the years of November 2013 up until, I believe it was November 2019. You have until April 1st to file lawsuits on those conditions. If you were housed in the queues, where the queues are closed, Q1, 2, 3, and 4, which were housing units that were closed down by the Connecticut Department of Correction. The conditions in those housing units were deplorable. They had PCB pipes. They had that were individuals have been being exposed to. There was large outbreaks of H. pylori there. They went through a situation with malaria there not too long ago. So if you have a family or loved one there, it's imperative that you reach out to an attorney and seek some type of consultation with regards to that lawsuit. I was told, I'm not sure, I'm just reiterating what I was told, that the law firm that is actually representing Mr. Tolliver has not been willing to take on any more clients. However, the DOC has put that information out in the housing units at the facilities. This is where I originally came in contact with the information from individuals that were calling me directly and informing me that, the DOC put the memo out. So I'm assuming that a judge has ordered them to place those notifications or memorandums in each housing unit so that individuals are aware of the suit that's taking place.
Oh, okay. So it can they reach out to you for any further information?
Yes, they can reach out to me. I will be pulling up the Tolliver case and seeing where it stands right now with the federal courts in Bridgeport. So early next week, if anyone wants to reach out to me for any information where they should be seeking counsel.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear the last part, but I did hear they can reach out to you because
Yeah,
I
they can
have
reach out to
a
me.
couple of letters.
And I'll give them the information that I have with regards to seeking counsel, or what the conditions may be of the suit and where it stands at this time that I'm reading it.
Thank you. I had reached out to a couple of legislators and they wanted information on it too. So I'll have them reach out to you. Thank you.
Okay.
Marisol. Oh, did you have something else to say?
No, I was.
Oh. Okay, Marisol, can you talk about the lawsuit that's out there now to address sexual assault at York facility between some of the incarcerated women and some of the staff or other incarcerated people? Can you talk a little bit about that?
I can talk a little bit about it because I actually was approached by a reporter on this actually a couple of weeks ago. And, she actually is the one who gave me the education, and I kind of had to find out a little bit from someone from the inside. And I guess it was a report or a complaint that was filed by the disability rights people in Connecticut. And they were talking about, there was like over 100 reports of sexual misconduct against the inmates by correctional staff and even other inmates in the facilities. They said that, when they reached out to DOC, there was no response. I'm not sure if there's been anything that's been addressed on that. I know they talked about in some of the reports, it's like verbal sexual harassment, inappropriate touching, that kind of falls within, the category of rape. they're talking about they think that they've had victims prior to 2022 and beyond. They're the fact that this is being perpetuated by staff, and especially when there was such a big push on the PREA Act, the Prison Rape Elimination Act, they're like, how they would, there's been talk of this in the past beforehand with sexual inappropriate relations between staff.
Incarcerated people and staff.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And we know that there was a case several years back. There was something even recently, as of like 2 years ago, with someone, and it's like, how does this happen? And why does it take this long to find out? Is, I think, the overwhelming issue. And they talked about that there were reports going back from 2019 to 2022, and that DOC wouldn't even provide them with redacted reports until they under the Freedom of Information Act, that they were required to do so.
Right.
So it's for it to come to that enormity, and being the only female facility in the state, that's, yeah. As someone who's been a victim of sexual assault, I mean, that's being put in a position where someone has that kind of control over you, and you have to worry about that. That's a little troubling, more than a little.
Yeah. And what it did for me when I heard about it, I feel like people on the inside are being empowered to start speaking up about a lot of the things that just became normalized because they felt they had no power to do anything about it. So I'm looking to see where that lawsuit goes. Yesterday I was at a public hearing where parole officers want to be classified as peace officers, which are like police officers. They want to have the same powers of arrest, to be able to do warrantless searches, and to use deadly force if necessary if someone tried to escape. And so they were putting on, a couple of parole officers came on and, as expected, put on this big show. Oh, we're here to help people. We're very, we're doing such a great job. I brought up the point that the majority of the people a huge majority of the people that are incarcerated now are there because they were violated for probation or parole, not because they committed a new crime, but because they violated a policy. Like maybe someone who was in there with addiction issues relapsed, or somebody with mental health issues relapsed and end up getting arrested. And if you're a helper, like parole put on this big picture, you would find a program or something to help them in that program, not put them back in prison, which is just going to exacerbate what they're already going through. But, again, I think I was the only Black person in there that was even talking about this issue. And so that's where I say we have to put some onus on ourselves for why we don't get anything done, because they showed up. They showed up and presented this picture like they're doing all this work, and they should get respected and have more powers and all this stuff. But there was nobody to push back on it.
Barbara, can I talk about that? Because I talk about this because where I live, across the street, there's been a show of force by parole and probation. They come in these unmarked Black cars in full tactical gear. Barbara, I'll never forget the first time. I was still on probation at the time that happened. And Barbara, I was just looking out my window in my house. And Barbara, all I saw was 5 cars pull up, full, like 10 people jump out of these cars, full tactical gear with a dog. And the biggest wave of fear went through me. And all I kept thinking is, oh my God, I'm going back to prison. Now, mind you, they weren't even coming at my house.
Yeah.
They were going across the street. And then the second time it happened, Barbara, I wasn't even on parole. I wasn't even on probation. I was walking to the front door, and I happened to catch two people in the vest, in the bulletproof vest, moving really fast up. They were walking quick. And you know how staff is. Generally, they tend to move like that when they're together or whatever the case may be. They were looking for someone.
And you're talking about parole again, right?
Yeah, parole. And probation, because you know how sometimes they work in tandem, sometimes depending if they need to extract someone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of these things where I saw them out the corner of my eye. Barbara, I literally dropped my purse, almost dropped to the ground, thinking, oh my God, these people were about to tackle me. Again, Barbara, they were beyond my fence. They're not, I wasn't even on parole or probation, any supervision,
But this
but
is
the
the trauma.
anxiety that
Yeah.
it produces. And let me tell you, when I was on parole and when I was on probation, actually, my ex-husband, you know, threatened to call probation and he called the police. And you know what that's like for people who are on supervision, the fear of going back. You know, he used that as a source of power against me for almost 2 years. And Barbara, all I kept thinking is if I walked into the court one day, I didn't think I would be coming back, walking back out.
Wow.
It's kind of like, you know, that's kind of like one of these things, but it speaks to why some of the people in our community don't want to come and show up and talk about these things because of the fear that, like, even when I bought this place, I didn't want anything, I didn't want probation, parole to have any knowledge of where I lived at because you're fearful that once they get that information, the harassment, you don't want retaliatory behavior. And I think that's what a lot of people are afraid of, retaliatory behavior.
So the picture that they put on that they're so helpful and people are successful as a result of the work that they do is why they should be deserving of this credit. So that's not the story you have either. Okay. Ray, can you talk? I just want to bring Ray in for a minute. Ray, can you talk about? You're Ray. You're muted. Are you with us, Ray? You're muted.
I'm listening. I'm listening to her.
No, I was asking you. The performance that they put on yesterday for the legislators is that the parole and probation are so instrumental and so helpful with people. They don't want to send people back to jail. It's like a last resort to send to prison. And then just wondering, you know, and then Marisol was talking about her experience with and the fear that they put in people. And I was just wondering, have you heard those great experiences from most people that you know beyond parole or probation? I felt it was experience, but I say,
actually, I had to. There's one young man that's been out on parole for 5 years, and he's like, parole is another form of trauma for us, you know, because it's always that fine line you gotta be walking, and you never know when that, just like a correctional officer may abuse his power, sometimes you have certain parole officers that abuse their power as well. And I had an incident just recently where I had a young man call me twice on 2 occasions, 2 separate occasions, maybe like a month and a half apart, where there were changes going on in the parole officer and they weren't articulating the changes to one another. However, when those changes were being made and they seen one parole officer seen that they were being handed this case for this individual, they were calling him, and when they weren't they didn't get him. So they'll leave these voice messages. You need to report down here now immediately, or you're going to be excounted from parole. And he's like, yo, what did I do? Why do they keep leaving me these messages? Why do they keep threatening me? And psychologically, it was affecting him.
Right.
And he's like, I'm not doing anything. I've been working. I've been, going to see my parole officer. So I advised him the second time to not go down there without his attorney.
Mm-hmm.
And when his attorney went, it became clear that, it was on their part where they weren't being forthwith with information with regards to when a parole officer was sick, or writing down when he was seen and what his next appointment would look like. And I also advised him that every time he goes down there for a parole, have his parole officer write the next date and sign a signature on the back of a business card as to when he's supposed to come back.
Right.
And therefore there won't be no discrepancies, and he can't be violated or won't feel like he's being intimidated by them because for their own misunderstandings. And that's not to say that all parole officers are like that, because I was fortunate to have a parole officer that was very understanding of my situation. However, my situation is a unique one. You don't have everyone coming home trying to be an activist or striving to, assist with others transitioning back into the community like I have. So I think I was giving not say a little leeway because, I was still held to the same standards, but I think my walk was a little less light because I stood on those principles. I knew what I signed for, and I knew what I needed to do in order to become free. And it ultimately led to me being early discharged off parole on January 17th this
year. All right. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I hear you, Marisol, people probably just afraid to come out and talk about those things, but that's part of my frustrations because like I'm sitting there, I'm not on probation or parole, don't have none of that experience, but yet I'm trying to talk about it and they can just dismiss me because here you got several parole officers coming in talking about all the great things they're doing for people and how they're making life easy for people and how they don't want to put people in prison. It's a last resort, and I'm looking like, okay, who's backing me up? So that's why I don't know. That's just my frustration. I understand people where they are, but I also see that it makes it hard for me to get some of the stuff done in Hartford that I want to get done. That's all.
And I think it's also where they make the interpretation of what they think is making our life easier. You know what I'm saying? That language and what that shows up like is very different for all of us. What they think it is, they haven't
I think the only thing that they possibly can consider with making your life easier is not bringing you back to prison.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, what are they doing? I mean, if you have, and this is just me on ethics, if you're a parole officer and and hypothetically you have a client that keeps coming in and pissing dirty, you don't give him the chance to, to digress all the way back to old behaviors. I would hope that you're not letting him just pass these urinalysis like you're giving him a break and without trying to help him get into a program if he's showing you these signs. So that's why the only thing I can think of is that they're just not bringing you back to prison.
Yeah, because years ago, that was one of the things I talked about in the hearing. Probation parole is really supposed to be resource people. They're supposed to be helping you to get housing and health care and jobs and all that kind of stuff. But I don't hear anybody talk about them doing any of that.
No,
but that was their performance. They work hard for the people.
And they work. They made referrals to where you should go and look for jobs and all of that. And I remember those days because I come from a large family where those in my family have been system impacted, and parole officers used to pop up at the house and say, you need to go get a job. You don't got a job? Here's a place you need to go look, or here, you need to go there and come back with the application. Show me that you had the application and that you had the interview, and you'll be all right. But I also believe that parole officers should act in the manner of life coaches for a lot of our citizens returning back into the communities, because you're there to assist. You're just not there to oversee and make sure that all the checks and balances that one signed on a piece of paper is being adhered to. You're there to see success of your client, which means that you don't want them to recidivate. How do you not do that? You should be more hands-on with his reintegration back into the community. And it's not just forcing him to get a job with an idle threat that if you don't get a job, we're gonna put you back in prison.
Yeah, because that sounds more like policing. And we get enough policing, and that's one of the things I talked about in my testimony. Our communities are over policed, over supervised, and over surveilled. That's not helping us at all.
So just imagine if they were to give them those powers as peace officers.
But you know what? It looks like they're gonna get it. From the hearing yesterday, it looks like they're gonna get it. Because they put in a great performance. They are hardworking for the people, and they should get the same respect.
Well, Barbara, that brings me up to something I wanted to bring up to you, because we talk about this, and it talks about where, as we're coming home, this inability to have a voice in the very same community we're coming back home to, or with the whole purpose of reintegrating us back into the community, there's no real viable way. Like, one of the things I found interesting that Massachusetts recently did was create a position on the Board of Pardons and Parole for a formerly incarcerated person. Why doesn't Connecticut do that? Why doesn't Connecticut put somebody who's justice impacted, or even better, someone like you who has family who's been justice impacted? Why isn't there a position for you as an advisory person to the governor or even the commissioner of corrections? Why is there no positions? We have to fight for these things. Like, I serve on the Correctional Advisory Committee, yes, but we had to fight for that.
And if Stop Solitary wasn't making the criteria about who's going to get on that board, you absolutely would not have had people that are formerly incarcerated making those decisions.
Ray being someone who did such a significant amount of time, and he's gotten off, he's been discharged off, services. Why wouldn't you take somebody like Ray, who's a community person, a reentry person, rehabilitated as a mentor? Why not put him in a capacity of being a commissioner on the boards of pardon? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's an ideal person. Or even somebody like you. Like, I understand they're concerned about safety and security, and they're like, you have to be credentialed, but who better than to someone who's got like 30 years in the system, who's coming back, doing all these things, knows the needs, that can speak to that experience when they're making these decisions about who can come home and who can't, or someone like myself. I may not have that kind of lived experience, but we're talking about the mental health, public health, you know what I'm saying? Like, there are people like us out here who know these things. They can't argue that we don't have the credentials, whether it's lived experience or some other ways. But
if this Connecticut wanted change, that's who they would reach for. That's exactly what they look for.
But they don't.
They don't.
Definitely.
Go ahead.
I don't think security is the issue. I've been in Brooklyn Correctional Facility to do several programs down there. I just left there on the 21st for Black History Month, doing showing a documentary and having to talk with the young men over there. And it was 88 men in attendance. I'm also going into Manson Youth, doing programs over there with Next Level Empowerment Program. So I don't think security is an issue. I seriously think that having someone be like myself in that position, who's been in majority of the facilities in the state, level 4 and some level 3s, I know what to look for. I have an eye for what should be there and what shouldn't be there, and I think that's the thing that they're afraid of. A lot of times they don't want to implement true change. I mean, they just want to put things on paper. But I'm one that will go in and hold them accountable.
And being realistic. But
go ahead real quick, because we got
speaking to Ray's point. I remember watching one of the juvenile parole hearings last year, and I remember that one of the commissioner people didn't even know the programs that York had to offer for drug rehabilitation and on which side. That was vital, that they said, well, you should have taken that, but you don't even know what programs are offered.
Well, we just got told we have 90 seconds, so I'm so sorry. We didn't even get to talk about everything I wanted, but we'll have to do this again. Thank you so much, both of you, for coming on and informing the community. And maybe we'll have a community meeting soon, Stop Solitary and Next Level hosting together. So thank you so much. Love you guys.
Definitely. Love you. Take care.
Okay.
As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission. I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains, haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up, fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah. Cause this is my road. Let's camera action.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHHLP 103.5 FM, your home